Hi, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to It's All About the Journey. We'll be talking infusing technology in the classroom with brains, heart, and courage. A little bit about me. My name is Steph Suko, and I am the Humanities Division Leader at Crystal Lake South High School. I'm a former instructional coach and English teacher, and I also adjunct at the college level. And so I am passionate about literacy and communication at all levels and would love to collaborate with all of you. So my email's right there. You can also find me on Twitter, and my handle's there as well. So before we begin, let's take a minute to share who you are and what you teach. And so I am going to actually pull up, this is the Pear Deck code. So you can follow along with our presentation on Pear Deck, and this is asynchronous, so you can click through the slides at your own pace, or you can stop and come back to it at any time. And so if you go to joinpd.com, you're going to type in NNUXQV. This is such a neat tool. Pear Deck is something that I use constantly with my high school and my college students, and students don't get bored of it because Pear Deck creates that interactive experience. So if you ever have to do direct instruction, you're able to bring your students into the conversation. And instead of raising hands and only one person can answer at a time, everybody gets a voice and everyone gets to participate. So you can participate by clicking on that. And I'm actually going to pull over here. I've got the student version going on my other screen over here. So this is what you'd actually see, which is so nice because I'm able to app smash or take the best of Google Slides and other Google products, other external tools, even games like Kahoot, I can have on the right side of my student screen while they're seeing content and information on a slide on the left side of the screen. And so this is really, really nice because then you can fill this out while still seeing that content. All right. And again, like I said, feel free to pause at any time and you can, again, engage with any of the content that we've got here. So what are we doing today? Well, today we will discuss how technology can be used to actively engage our students in learning. So activating those brains and that prior knowledge. We're also going to reflect on how we might use technology to build relationships and support students' social and emotional learning. And we all know if students aren't social and emotionally ready to learn, we know that they're not going to absorb the information that we want. So that heart component is so key. And then we're going to consider how technology can make learning visible and promote citizenship in the classroom, digitally, and beyond. And we are going to follow that metaphor of the Wizard of Oz. I love the story of Dorothy dreaming to go over the rainbow, to step into that color. And technology and different tools and resources, when used effectively, really can illuminate that experience for our students and help us to create a sense of wonder and curiosity in the learning process. And that's what we're overall going to talk about today. So let's dig in. What can technology do? Again, there's that brains, heart, and courage, and really thinking about Dorothy's journey and how she used all of these different friends to help her to get to her end destination. And that's what technology really is for us. You know, working with teachers, sometimes they think that they have to use technology because it's an item on a box and you've got to check it off. But really, it's about pairing the right people or the right activities, in this case, together. And so tech can enhance student engagement and increase access to resources. And when we talk about equity and inclusion, that increased access to resources is so key and essential. And again, technology makes that easier. It can also help prepare students for the future. As we want to make our students future ready, we know that we can utilize these tools to help prepare them for jobs that don't even exist yet. It also improves communication and collaboration and what's considered to be those soft skills. But those soft skills are really essential, and that's what employers are looking for. And it can support us in that social emotional learning journey and foster those relationships. Also, it encourages citizenship, and we're able to have good conversations about ethical use of technology and resources like AI, we can also talk to our students about what they're putting online and how they can make better decisions or the best decisions to help them to succeed. So let's share here. What are some of your favorite tech tools to use with students? And how has technology enhanced your students' learning experiences? And on the right-hand side of the screen, you can type in your response. What's so neat is at the end of the conference, I'll be able to end the presentation, and you're actually going to get an email with all of these slides. So all the links, all the resources is going to be sent to you in email, but also all of your feedback and your participation. And so this is another great advantage for Pear Deck if you have to do direct instruct, or if you teach at some of those higher levels where there's a lot of information. I'm thinking about some AP and dual credit social science classes. Taking notes and using Pear Deck as that interactive tool can really help students to gather information, activate that prior knowledge, and to be able to have a resource moving forward to remember a lot of content. And then likewise, we're going to go over to the bad side here. And what are some of your reservations about technology in the classroom? In what ways might technology hinder the learning experience? So I know for me, again, I've seen teachers try to use technology that they're just trying to insert it or use it to say they used it. And we know that if something can be done better on paper, do it on paper. It is absolutely okay. And in fact, it's essential to close the Chromebooks or the devices and put those down to have those communicative experiences, to have time to think and reflect without distractions. So it's all about finding that balance. And we know that if you look at it with extremes, that can be a hindrance as well. So let's dig into the first step of our journey. And remember, anytime you want to pause and come back, feel free to do that. So step one is discuss how technology can be used to actively engage students in learning. Well, first and foremost, I want to stop and I want you to spend a moment to reflect on, would you want to be a student in your classroom? This is a really powerful question that actually was sparked in the book Teach Like a Pirate by Dave Burgess. And it's something that I frequently ask myself. What makes my students excited to come into my class? What can I do to make sure that they feel welcomed, that they have resources that they need, and that they're excited to participate? And so when asking some of those bigger, those smaller questions under that big umbrella question of, would you want to be a student in your classroom, can help us to really start to think about the learning experience and the journey that our students are going on as they enter our classroom and as we progress through the semester or the year. So, again, a warning about tech tools. Again, as Dorothy enters Munchkinland for the first time, she's amazed and drawn in by all the beautiful colors and flowers, and everything is so engaging. But we know that can quickly turn dangerous or sour when it's not used purposefully. So if it can be done better or more efficiently or more effectively on paper, do it. But don't be afraid to try something new. There's a difference between just throwing out a tech tool to have a tech tool and trying something and failing. It is absolutely okay. In fact, we need to model that even more. There's that great book called The Gift of Failure, and it talks about how often we as adults try to pave the way or make everything smooth and perfect for our children or our students. But if we're learning a new tech tool or trying a new strategy, I think modeling that with students and having the conversation about what worked and what didn't can help us make us better practitioners, but also can empower our students to think critically about the ways in which they learn and the tools and resources that are helpful in that process. So using tech purposely, again, consider your why before you pick your what. When you understand the learning targets or the goals and the end results, then you can work backwards and figure out which tool or tools work best for you. Now, this video is great because it talks about the SAMR model, and it talks about how we can utilize technology to redefine, to modify, to augment, and also just to go completely beyond and reinvent the ways in which our students are learning. And that's really powerful and can be really transformational in helping our students to not just be passive learners or listeners, but to be actively involved in creating their own products and experiences that can help them in the future as well. So I would love for you guys, and I'm going to make this smaller for a second here. I would love for you to kind of look at this checklist, and you can use the draw tool on Pear Deck to mark off what are some things that you're including in your current practices. And so again, many of us are using a learning management system, Google or Office 365, but how often are we using different strategies like direct instruct or whole group learning, collaborative projects, blended learning principles, gamification, team-based activities, and what other strategies do you infuse into your classroom already? Because once you know what it is that you're infusing into your classroom, you can begin to assess how can we help our students to be even more engaged. And when working with teachers on instructional practices and strategies, I think people immediately think of this image right here where, adding a tech tool is this huge leap and it's going to change everything. But really, we're looking at using small steps, and the best way to succeed is, again, to start small, and maybe it's try a new tool or have a student try a new tool. There's a great website called Flippity, which Flippity is amazing because it has all of these different little formative games that teachers can make or students can make, and they're templates. And they're so great because empowering, not feeling like we have to do it all ourselves, is so key. I do want to stop and I want to show you this incredible video. So when we think about what gets our students excited and what they'll spend hours and hours doing versus what they dread the most, I think this goofy video gives us the idea that if we can help our students to create and have to practice and stretch their skills, we can get them so excited about learning. So let's take a look here.
Now, this is what you call an awesome pull dunk. Yeah, it must have taken a lot of practicing and a lot of guts, but these guys nailed it.
Okay, that is incredible, and that must have taken hours for them to perfect. And again, I believe that we can get our students that excited about things they're learning or projects they're creating in our classroom. And technology often helps with that, whether that's video projects or, design and using, engaging tools like Canva that helps them to create stories and ideas. We can really empower our students to be so excited to learn that they can't wait to share it with others as well. So what types of technology do we use and when should we turn it off? Here's a great 6-minute TED Talk where he goes back and forth. He doesn't say if technology is positive or if it's negative. He really asks a lot of great questions about what it can look like and what it can do for our students. So backward design is so important and powerful. And that idea of, the UBD or understanding by design, starting with the end goal first before you determine what you're looking for is so key and important. And it's where teachers can go wrong if you get started with what am I doing exactly every moment, day one. We want to focus on enhancing the student experience and engagement, and we also need to consider our teaching style and content area. Now, there are certain disciplines in which technology is more naturally infused than others. And so thinking about your specific areas and your specific students' needs are also really great questions when you're having the debate of what type of technology to use and when. So take a minute and pause and watch this 6-minute video. And then again, in the Pear Deck, you can take notes, and those notes will be sent to you as soon as the conference is over. Again, going back to that backwards design here, starting with that overall learning goal and objective, determining what you want your students to know, and then planning that experience. It reminds me again a lot of that Wizard of Oz journey where Dorothy she knew what the end goal was in mind. She had to get to the Emerald City because that's where she would be able to go home. And, along the way, she took a lot of detours and met a lot of new friends. But we have the power to help our students to reach their end goals if we start with that goal in mind. That gives us something to work towards, and then we can fill in the pieces with all those different twists and turns. Now, another really great resource, especially as you're looking to transform your classroom and enhance your use of technology, is the Modern Classroom Project. This is an organization that really focuses on amazing blended and asynchronous experiences for students. It's all about creating self-paced and mastery-based courses for our students. And so you can click the link right there. You can also see it on the right-hand side if you're following along in the Pear Deck. But their whole philosophy is focusing on must-dos, should-dos, and aspire-to-dos. So there are absolutely some activities that students must do to master or to understand content. Should-dos are those, summative assessments, those stretches, things that students need to show us that they've learned their content. And then aspire-to-dos, that's the pool activity. That's the stretching students and getting them so excited about their learning that they want to do more and they want to share that out with others. Now, again, here's a little bit of the definition here. Those extensions are really key, those aspire-to-dos. Those are often in my classroom. Must-dos are going to be direct instruction, flipped videos, activities that are the basics that lead to the summative assessments. Should-dos are great ways for me to give students opportunities and choice in how they demonstrate mastery. But aspire-to-do, these are the toughest parts of the lessons. These are to stretch our top students or to pull up, some of our students who are struggling, because it's an extension of the learning experience. And it's helping students to find ways to teach others about the content and to create and to imagine and to apply so many different ideas to their daily lives. So, to encourage engagement, students should do those aspire-to-do assignments. And so when I think about the Wizard of Oz and I think about that horse that changes all those colors and how engaging and unique that is, that's the part of our lessons and our experiences in our classroom where we want students to be so drawn in and taken by surprise by their learning that we can enhance their understanding of the assessment process. We can encourage them to reflect and give students voice to what they've learned. Those aspire-to-do assignments or those stretch assignments that often are enhanced by technology can be group-based assignments, and they're really creative. So let's dig in a little bit more to what that could look like in our classroom. Now, there is a lot of talk about blended learning and personalized learning. That's been a passion of mine for the last several years as well. And I think when wanting to personalize the learning experience for our students, we have to understand how to use technology effectively to give people options. And so often that seems so overwhelming. That seems like such a far reach for us. But really, it's about using all the resources that we have and rethinking what we do on a daily basis in our classroom. Especially during COVID, we created so many videos and use so many tech tools out of necessity. Now we can sprinkle those back in and use them to create what's called learning pathways. So if you have a learning management system, you can lock and you can build out different pathways for your students or different options. If you use Canvas, I have a video talking about using requirements in Canvas to create that blended learning experience. So feel free to take a look at that video. I know Schoology is very similar as well in terms of you can lock things until students have completed something. You can even lock the next assignment until students have earned a certain grade on an assignment. So exploring your LMS and considering how you might use some of those modern classroom principles of the must-do, should-do, aspire-to-do can be really powerful. So creating modules or pathways encourages students to show what they know, to all learn the same content, but they might take different paths along the way. And when we think about Dorothy and choosing which ways to go on the yellow brick road, we know that that can be really important and definitely have an impact on how they get to that end journey or that end destination. So people are so, when I talk to teachers about personalized learning, it seems so daunting and overwhelming. And just like as we know, Dorothy and her friends are trying to figure out how to kill the wicked witch or to get those, make Oz safe again. But it's really not that complicated. It's really just a little bit of planning and rearranging of, again, all the things that you're already doing and providing in your classroom. So I've got this great planning doc where you can look at your learning target and you can think about the overarching goals and then ask yourself 3 questions. How will my students learn the content? How will they practice? And what will they do to show what they're learning? And so as you can see in this Google Doc, you can do a drop down if it's a must do, should do, or aspire to do. You can share this directly with students, or you can use this as a roadmap for you to consider how you may tweak or adjust a lesson so that it's more personalized. And again, personalized learning is definitely something that can be infused in small ways or big ways. It doesn't mean that every student's doing something completely different every day, but giving students that choice and voice and using or leveraging technology to do so can be so powerful. All right, so what are some of those formative tools? Well, here are the greatest hits of formative assessment tools, the tools that, at least at the high school level, seem to be the biggest hit and really practical and useful. And so if you have any vocabulary, and in any discipline, we all have vocabulary or key concepts, these 4 tools, so Kahoot, Quizlet Live, Gimkit, and Quizzes, they're all really powerful and fun ways for students to get excited about learning. I actually use Kahoot quite frequently with my senior dual credit students, and I use Kahoot as a pre-teaching tool. So in our speech communication textbook, there's a lot of definitions that students know and understand the concepts before even reading the text, but they don't realize it. And so I use it as a tool to measure where students are at. And that helps me to focus my mini lessons and my direct instruction experiences because I can dig in deeper to what they don't know, and I can go faster in the areas that they know. Also, I use stickers, and seniors with Chromebooks just absolutely love putting fun stickers on their Chromebooks. So it's been a really great way to teach and use a formative assessment tool as a pre-teaching tool. And so, again, when I think about the Scarecrow and Dorothy, and he's trying to help her to figure out which way to go, here's a little bit of a rundown of which ways that you can go with your students to help them learn. Quizlet Live is great for face-to-face collaboration and working in small groups. Gimkit is awesome, and it was created by students, so I love supporting a company like that. And Gimkit has Kit Collab where students can create their own games and work together, and that's really, really fun. And then Quizzes is also really a great tool, very similar to Kahoot, but Quizzes is self-paced for each student, so it's not always the big formal game. It's really great for students who need longer processing times. So usually when I'm working with different levels of students, I might consider what works best aesthetically for them so that they can all learn. Now, flipping the narrative, like I said, you can use these formative assessment tools as a pre-teaching tool. And a lot of these games you can stop and pause along the way. So you're quizzing your students, you're challenging them to think critically about information, and then you're infusing some direct instruct points or opportunities, fun prizes and incentives, get students excited. And then you can also embed. There's this tool called iframe generator. So if you use Canvas or if you use a learning management system or a web page and you want to embed a Kahoot or any of these activities, you can create the embed code and then plop that straight into your page or your assignment. Now, Book It has exploded at the high school level. My littles, my actual children, are also using Book It. And it's so great because very similar to Gimkit, it's got different games and different ways to encourage the fun, have a little bit of a healthy competition, and you can upload a template so you can create flashcards. It integrates directly with Quizlet, so you can pull over that content, which is really nice, and it can be played as a class or individually. And all of these formative assessment tools, they have an individual component, so it's great for a flipped lesson, a blended lesson. It's a great way to challenge students to review. But as I mentioned earlier, the advantage of using technology is it's an equity issue. So if you have a student who is absent, they can still experience that same review game or that same lesson. Also, too, for our students who need or have a longer processing time, we can allow them to redo and to replay and to re-experience these tools, and that can be so powerful. So I love Pear Deck, and I love that it app smashes. So on the right-hand side of your screen, you're going to see this Padlet. I want you to share what you know. So create a video, audio recording, drawing. Tell me what you think a tech-infused classroom looks like. And then paste any links or resources or share out any ideas. And this is great because it's asynchronous. So we'll see those comments pop up over the course of this conference, and I'm excited to hear more of what you know and how we can activate our brains in being smart about how we use technology. Don't forget, as I have in this image here, sign into Padlet in the upper right corner, and then in the bottom right corner, that's where you're going to hit that plus button and you can add your comment. All right, on to step 2. Let's reflect on how we might use technology to build relationships and support students' social and emotional learning. So what is SEL? The CASEL framework is something that is definitely on my heart, and I know has been integrated into classrooms so much in the last few years. And so according to CASEL, SEL is the process through which all young people and adults acquire and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Social emotional learning is not just about the feels. It's about executive functioning. It's about being able to engage with people at all different levels and having a healthy understanding of self, being able to manage and regulate emotions, work towards and achieve goals, have empathy for others, and make responsible and caring decisions. And you can explore this framework even more. And on the CASEL website, it's interactive, so it'll expand and you can look at different components of that. And really understanding that learning, being ready to learn involves that connection with yourself and your social and emotional levels. And so understanding that can help us to prepare students to learn and also help them to be better citizens. So just like with Dorothy, all 3 of those characters that she meets along the way, they're all so important, and they've really learned to work together. And so here is our heart component. I love this quote by Dr. Karen Burke, and it says, "Intertwining social and emotional learning and academics advance the ability of our students to adapt to change with the essential skills to effective management of new challenge." So looking at that, again, the keywords are emotional learning and academics. They go hand in hand. If a student is not emotionally prepared to learn, they're not going to learn anything, no matter how engaging we are. And so understanding, getting to the heart of the issue is really key. And so one thing that I like to do in my own classroom is I want to empower students to be the owners of their learning. And so often when we look at those surveys that students take at the end of a semester, end of a year, or surveys parents might take as well, they're asking so many big questions that sometimes students don't even know or understand the question itself. And so I have taken this quarterly survey that I've narrowed down, and it's a really big social and emotional connection because it asks students to self-evaluate. It talks about where they're at with their learning, what their grade is, their understanding of their progress. And then it shifts to the conversation of how I can, as their instructor, support them to be better learners. And so it's teaching students to take that ownership and not say, well, my teacher did this, my teacher did that, and that's why I have a grade. It's saying, no, this is my grade. This is what I've done to earn that so far. This is where I'm at. And hey, teacher, can you walk with me? Just like Dorothy walks with the Scarecrow and the Tin Man. Can you walk with me to achieve my goals, to get me to that end destination? And so feel free to click on that form. You can make your own copy and you can adjust it. It's one that I actually used with teachers quite a bit to make sure that they can reach we had an SEL goal in my school one year, and then teachers kept using it. And so some people do it as a post unit form, and they've changed it, and adapted it to their own classrooms. But I definitely recommend doing it quarterly, doing it throughout the semester. You don't want to wait till the end of the semester to do those big surveys. And so it's yielded some really great results and conversations that have helped me to support my students and also adjust my practices or provide more opportunities to practice to help students learn. Another great activity, and this is low tech, or you can use a tool like Pear Deck to gather information and responses. But I love this, and I saw this on Twitter, and it's I wish my teacher knew. And that simple of leaving a place where students can leave comments and postcards or little post-it notes can be really powerful and encourage communication. So often our students have so much to share, and we don't always stop and take time to listen, or maybe they're afraid to reach out. So you can do this in a physical format. You can also do this digitally through your learning management system. You could create and encourage to have a little drop box in which students can post and click. And, if you have a colorful button on your LMS, then it's right there for students to think about, and they can click on it any time to give you feedback or just tell you how they're doing. And it's amazing when you create that access, the kinds of communication that you can have with students. So you can do it physically or digitally, but I definitely encourage that. So having heart is so powerful and can guide us through so much. Another really great activity, which is great for using with Pear Deck, it's also great with using with Google Jamboard, which functions really similarly to Padlet, but I love using these templates here. So there are some templates that are going to be on a later slide with Jamboard that you can steal, you can copy, you can adjust to your own needs. This or that is really, really fun. It's fun at all levels. Even adults like it. And so by doing, Coke versus Pepsi, night versus day, having those goofy questions, I love using them as bell ringers and just getting students talking to each other and having fun and establishing that rapport, because then we can dive into the lesson and my students are going to be so much more engaged. They're going to be excited and ready to learn. And it's just a fun way for us to get to know and bond as a class. And again, you can use it with Jamboard, Pear Deck, Padlet. There's all sorts of different tools. You could do a poll everywhere too, just to guide that information or that experience and then gather data. Ask Me Anything is also really fun. And students love putting, I'll use this with Padlet, and students will drop questions and obviously school appropriate questions. But that Ask Me Anything is really popular on TikTok and Instagram Live. And so students having that experience and, they can ask you anything. We also sometimes put students in the hot seat and they have students ask them anything. And it's just a fun way to get to know each other and to celebrate people. And again, curating those questions on something like Padlet can be really helpful and make it easy. Here we are. I love Jamboards, and there's so many great templates, and especially if you have a Canva account. Just a quick plug for Canva, you can get a free educators account, which is unreal and incredible. And so that educators account, you can create so many great resources, and they have templates for Jamboard and for slides and things like that. So Jamboard is an anonymous Google Workspace product that, like I said, functions really similarly to Padlet. It can be used individually or with groups. And if students have touchscreens, it's great to make manipulative. So especially if you're working in younger grades and they've got diagrams and things that they're moving around, you can create tiles like that. And my littles, my own children, really enjoyed that. So I've got some group check-ins. I've got some individual reflection templates that I placed here for you. I also have a video if you want to walk through of how to use this tool, so you can check that out as well. Now, Mentimeter is another really popular one, very similar to Poll Everywhere. Menti is very interactive. It allows for quick polling. My favorite part of Mentimeter, and what I use it for almost exclusively, is word clouds. And so I really like this because you can ask students to describe how they're feeling in like 1 or 2 words. And then if 10 kids say happy, happy will be the biggest word. And it's very visual, and you can adjust the visual. And so I really like that because it helps us as a whole to create a summary or to see where we're all at. And it's, you can save or screenshot that image and use it somewhere else. And so that's a really cool, easy to use tool. Pear Deck, what we've been using right now, I love Pear Deck so much, and it's such a supportive company, and so they're so easy to work with, and they want to empower teachers. They've got these great SEL templates that are pre-made slides that you can integrate. And so what I like to do, especially for teachers who are more tech resistant, this is an easy way to dip your toes into something, because you don't have to change your slides or what you're already doing. You can just put the Pear Deck add-on and you can enhance what you're already doing. And so it's easy. They've got these social emotional learning slides, which are amazing. You can add so many to what you're already doing, and you can customize as well. Like I said, I use this with students so often, but every experience feels different because it's personalized. And sometimes we're drawing a ton, sometimes we're doing polls, sometimes we are moving manipulatives. And so there's so many possibilities. Now, I really like, this is an example of one of the SEL slides from Pear Deck. And so I've tweaked it just a tiny bit so I could change the text. But what does mindfulness mean to you? And do you think teachers and schools can help students to be more mindful? If you want to drop an answer into the right side of the screen, mindfulness, so often when we think about, meditation, mindfulness, to being self-aware, I think we think about like turning off the lights and shutting everything down, but we can have a dialogue around it, and we can use tools like Pear Deck to help us with that process. All right, we've finished step 2, so we are on to our third leg of our journey. But before we get there, I would like you to reflect on how do you incorporate social emotional learning into your classroom? And then after reviewing a few of these strategies, what might you like to try this fall? And I love this quote that says, "A heart is not judged by how much you love, but how much you are loved by others." And I think what's important and the takeaway there is, we need to gather feedback from our students. We need to make sure that they are seeing and feeling the same things that we are, and that they are getting the most out of their experience within our classrooms. So doing those polls and stopping and reflect and thinking about their perspective, I think can be really powerful. All right, third step. How can we use technology to make learning visible and promote citizenship in our classrooms? So we're on to our cowardly lion here. I think I'd love for you guys to tell me, what does being a good citizen look like in your classroom? And how do you establish those classroom rules and expectations? Technology can help us to support our rules and creating that classroom environment. It can also be a great way, it's also something that we need to talk about in helping our students, no matter what age they are, especially in that K, even all the way through 12th grade, of making good choices online and determining citizenship in a digital sense is really important. So I love this quote that says, all you need is confidence in yourself. There's no living thing that is not afraid when it faces danger. True courage is facing danger when you are afraid, and that kind of courage you have plenty. So that idea of, as we go off into the world, to not be afraid to share our voices, to articulate our feelings and thoughts, but to do it in a respectful and kind way is really important too. So let's dig in. All right, let's start with digital citizenship. And I love this digital citizenship roundup from Edutopia. Is literally just a really long list of different resources and ways we can teach digital citizenship to our students. So when it comes to digital citizenship, we want to be explicit with our conversations. We want to communicate and model how to be a strong citizen online and off. And we want to develop a culture of positive citizenship. And I think a lot of that comes from understanding and explicitly teaching our students the difference between right and wrong. I think because our students have cell phones and they're online and that's how they're growing up, we just assume that they understand the implications of their digital footprints and what they're doing online. But they don't have that executive functioning skills, yet. They haven't developed that maturity to really understand those implications. And so creating and having dialogue is so key. This past semester, I spent a lot of time talking to my students about AI, which is what we're going to get to in just a second here. So one way to help students to establish and start to understand what digital citizenship looks like is having online discussions. So even in a face-to-face class, I infuse a few online discussions with my students so that they understand how to positively participate. I also try to teach them to go beyond just saying, yeah, I agree, or that's great. So actually critically engaging in that dialogue is something that needs to be modeled for them. It needs to be practiced. It does not come naturally. And so practicing that engagement becomes so key. And discussions can be content related. They can be going back to those ask me anything questions. They can be silly in nature, but we want students to share, connect, and extend ideas. Discussions can be organized into small groups. They can be icebreakers. They can also be content-rich assignments. So I've linked a couple of different resources for you to check out right there. So speaking of AI, and again, if we look at the great and powerful wizard here, artificial intelligence is a hot topic right now. And, in talking to a lot of my colleagues, I think people are afraid of it. And it's easy to be afraid of something that you don't know. Like the wizard that seems so ominous, if we learn how to use it ethically and for good, it can actually be a really beneficial tool. And I'm going to argue that we can't shy away from something that scares us. We can't shy away or pretend that AI is not here because it's not going anywhere. And in fact, it's only going to become more pervasive in our technology use. So something that I did with my seniors is I was very upfront. I said, I know there's this tool. I know it's going to be tempting to use, but if you're just copying and pasting, again, that emphasis of plagiarism and how significant what those repercussions can be. So modeling using AI as a brainstorming tool, as a dialoguing tool, not as a writing replacement tool, is really, really key. And so I've used it a ton with students for brainstorming and talking about their different experiences and helping them come up with ideas. Now, if you're really nervous about AI, you can do more in-class writing assignments. You can also evaluate your prompts. If, I know with English, there's prompts that, are still around in the circuit that, were prompts that I used in high school. And so shifting that focus, finding new ways to make connections to more current events can be really key. It takes a lot of creativity on our part, but it's definitely powerful. And so here are some more readings that you can do to learn more about that. So one is 3 strategies for helping students navigate the ethics of AI. This article is really interesting because it also talks about privacy and how AI can gather data from us, and we want to be very careful with that privacy feature. Talking about ChatGPT and common sense education. Again, that digital citizenship piece is really key. And then Facing History has a lesson on the ethics of generative AI in the classroom. And like that lesson's really awesome. And I think there's like a 15-minute component. So I would definitely explore that. If that's something that you're afraid of or that seems so scary to you, remember to pull back the curtain a little bit. There are benefits to be able to use it. And we are doing our students a disservice if we pretend it doesn't exist. So really, getting behind the curtain and understanding the reality of the positives and obviously the drawbacks can be really, really key. So don't shy away from it because it might just have the answers that you're looking for. And finally, my big thing is I am on this huge podcasting kick. Podcasting continues to become easier and easier with all the different tech tools that we have. Students can even build a podcast on iMovie on their phone. And so podcasting is a great way to help students to share their voices and get them to practice those critical listening skills as well as those speaking skills, which when we talk about literacy, we talk often about reading and writing, and we forget about the listening and speaking piece. Just because we speak all day and we're engaging with people doesn't mean that we're skilled in those communicative processes. So podcasting can be a formal or informal activity that allows students to share ideas. On the right-hand side here, I've got this template, this rundown that I've given with students, and I have literally made it a one class period assignment where I say, talk about any topic. Pick your topic. And they create this rundown and then they record within the same period. Now, is it the best award-winning podcast of all time? No. But the idea that they can organize their ideas, they can pitch those ideas, they can practice those communication skills and collaborate with a partner and really create an interesting product is really powerful. It also gets students excited about the possibilities. So podcasting doesn't have to be a professional endeavor that you spend hours and hours or weeks and weeks on. It can be something really short and sweet, and it's something that you infuse into your classroom that can help our students to be better communicators. You don't need expensive equipment or formal training, and I promise you 95% of your students will be able to figure this out. And then the couple that are less tech savvy, that's why they have a partner and that's why they have friends that can help them along the way. Now, this YouTube video is an incredible TED Talk that talks about why we should podcast. And so if you're looking to get started, I would definitely check out that TED Talk. Now, I have several assignments that I've linked. One of my favorites is this teenage life. So I had students do lit circles, and they were lit circles and books that were related to teen issues. And then they critiqued the book. They made connections to their lives in their high school, and they also delved deeper into the topic, especially many of them were social and emotional related. And so it was a really powerful, so it was a series of podcasts. And then I had them critique each other's and listen to different people's podcasts. And it created a really great experience. Students loved it. And I really loved watching them have those dialogues and those rich conversations, which they probably wouldn't have had if we did like huge classroom Socratic seminar or this big, large, classroom discussion where some people can hide, but with a podcast, nobody can hide, although they feel hidden because their faces aren't being seen. So feel free to click around and make copies of any of my assignments. I have rubrics that are tied to speaking and listening skills. So if you're looking to bolster those skills, you can take a look at those rubrics. And then these are the tools that I've used with students. We have a paid subscription to WeVideo, which I love WeVideo. And that's so easy to use and edit, and you can incorporate music. There's free music, there's free sound effects. And so students can get super creative with that. If a student has an iPhone, they can just use iMovie too. They function very similarly. Flip is another really great way, and you can do voice only. And I created, when I did this teenage life, and I've done like just a podcast book talk, Flip is so easy. You turn it on, you turn it off. Some kids even get really creative and they have like music on their phone that then they'll play an intro and outro. Soundtrap is free and has some editing capabilities. So if you don't have a paid subscription to something, Soundtrap is a great choice. Vocaroo is free and online, and it's start and stop. You literally just hit record. It records. You can download that sound, the MP3, and that's easy to embed into something else. And then Anchor, which is now called Spotify for podcast, is something, if you're looking to go a more professional route, that's definitely something to aspire to do, and definitely something that I've been exploring personally as I'm developing my own podcast. So let's stop and reflect now. Let's take a draw, and I would love for you to draw how you might use technology to enhance citizenship and positive interactions in your classroom. What does that look like? And again, I love the draw feature in Pear Deck, and I am not an artist at all, but to see what creative connections and symbols that students draw is not only fun, but also really engaging and helps them to make those rich connections. All right, let's reflect now. How are you feeling now about infusing technology purposely into your classroom? You can take this little arrow and you can move it around here. Now, I always do this, or I frequently do this with my students, is I say, okay, let's turn the tables. If you have your best friend is absent from class today, in 1 minute, write down the most important thing or things from today's lesson. And then if you folks could fill out this form, I'd like for you to give me some feedback so I can enhance my messages for future teachers just like you. Some questions to consider, friends. How might you use tech to spark thought, heart, and courage in your students next year? What ideas and techniques were sparked during this lesson, and what are you still wondering or curious about? You know, the best way to learn is to be curious, and so I would love to hear where you're at and what you're processing as you go through this conference and as you're on summer break and thinking about all the things that we want to do in the fall. Now, if you're looking for more tools, here is my bank of tools and walkthroughs and applications, and you can kind of click through, and there are different categories, and hopefully you can find a tool or tools that work and fit into your learning targets and goals. Now, if you want to plug a resource, feel free to click on this Google Doc and share some resources that maybe I don't know about yet or other people might not know about, because there's so many amazing tools out there. But remember, it's not about the tool. It's about that whole overarching journey. It's not where you go, it's who you meet along the way, and it's the collaboration and the connection and the experiences that you create in your amazing classroom. So if you're looking for any references and things that I used, I've got a ton of resources right here. Feel free to click through and check those out so you can learn more. Thank you so much for attending, and I hope you have a great rest of this conference and a great rest of your summer.